we have a live book signing on the stage. This is very impressive. Thank you, Chris. Your panel was earlier today. All right, fantastic. Okay, so we're here to talk about CX in the SME, and obviously we've just had that explosive panel from Sam. We can talk a bit about what's happening in terms of disruption in the AI market as well. And disruption in the SMB is obviously going to be an area where voice startups are coming in. I think we have one of them on the stage with us as well, so we can get your thoughts on that. I guess, you know, to set the scene, a lot of the talk today has been quite high level about CX in general, about the industry more broadly. But obviously in the SMB, things are necessarily different, right? They are necessarily different. We're dealing with a lot more price sensitivity. We're dealing with a lot more issues and questions in that regard. So I guess to start us off, is that price sensitivity a massive factor in the SMB space? Like, where are you getting buy-in? Where are you getting pushback? Why don't we dive in? Who do we dive in with? Edward, why don't we dive in with you? Do you want to take us off on that?
Thanks very much, Finbar, for the invitation for a start. So, in terms of price pressure, I think the market speaks for itself. If you look at the growth in some of the AI-driven stocks, and they're expecting, you know, massive increase in revenues, and SMB buyers are going to be a massive part of this. So, I would say that in general, what we're seeing, or what I'm seeing and thinking, is that yes, they will pay for more, for sure. And what'll drive them is solutions. Again, I heard Sam talking about outcomes. He's right. So if they're getting real outcomes, they'll pay for it. And the outcomes are essentially lower cost, more efficiency, automation, doing things that take work today that don't take work tomorrow. So if SMB are getting that, yes, they'll pay for it. And the market is saying the same, and I think it's true.
Do we have any dissenters on that point, or do we all roughly agree that the SMB are going to be happy to lean in and pay for this?
I don't think we're seeing a problem with that at all. So 100 Middleton, I'm from 8x8, so I work with that level of energy all day that you just saw from Sam. But I wanted to point that out because I think his message is dead on. If you're talking about a contact center, this group doesn't have large contact centers. They're not out to go play with their budget and optimize a little over there in the corner on their contact center seats. But if you walk in and you find a way to enable their frontline salespeople that are walking the car dealership lot, and you find a way to enable them to close 20% more sales in a month, there's no limit on what they'll pay for that other than the value they're getting from the increased revenues. So if you focus on all workers and what they are doing to drive the growth in that SMB business, you're not really dealing with a price-sensitive customer. You're dealing with someone who you are helping expand their business, and they're going to pay for that.
But how, I mean, to reach that, I'm guessing you need a very clear message about the amount of revenue or value they're going to get out of the product you're selling them. So is that how you're having to approach the market? Catherine, what do we...
Yeah, I was going to say, to speak to that, I think we talked a lot about, or we've heard a lot about outcomes today, and I'd like to speak to measurable outcomes. So, you know, we've had some talk on ROI, but I think if you go into the SME space and you can show them or deliver to them a voice AI agent that picks up their calls that they were missing all weekend, or that they were spending X amount of dollars for to go to a real voice center, people answering the phone, and you can actually show them an AI agent that can deliver that same outcome, but a tenth of the price, they will pay for it. So, being able to show them a real increase in revenue in that way and a deliverable ROI.
And when we say a real increase in revenue, I mean, what sort of use cases are we talking about here? Maybe Andrew, do you want to jump in on that in terms of, how, is it just replacing very simple use cases, or how complex are things getting?
Yeah, well, I should say in advance that Akixi is 100% channel, so a lot of our exposure to SMB is via our excellent service providers and MSPs. So use case wise, I think you can categorize it by saying it is going to be valuable in areas that an SMB know are important but can't quite get to. So really key areas in our world that might be around missed calls or risk reduction, things they just wish they had another 20% in a day and they would absolutely achieve. And if you take things that they already care about, existing behaviors, and you say, right, well, we're going to introduce this amazing platform that's going to take all of that forwards. I don't think they're going to cancel any staff. They're not going to remove anyone. It's just going to make everybody better.
I guess the part that I find interesting is that dealing with that, they have obviously maybe less education on the capabilities of the technology. Like, do you find there's resistance in getting them to buy into that vision that you're trying to take them along? Or do they get what you're trying to pitch to them?
No, there's definitely an education journey. The service providers of ours who do the best don't shout it out as a line item. It's just too big a thing to have to worry about. They will embed CX into their UCaaS conversation. So actually in March, we were back in Cavell, we were talking about ARPU's coming down, ARPU's coming down. Don't try and build it up in sections. Group it together as one overarching conversation about value. There's your UCaaS, here's your value-added services that are going to assist your CX that are going to bring in new revenue and maybe give you your weekends back. But yes, package it up is my conclusion there.
I think there's another point you have to remember, and I'm going to go back to Sam's comments about consumption. If you're thinking about a consumption model, you don't actually have to sell the outcome first. You can talk about the business problem, and they can just try it out. If it doesn't work, they don't actually end up paying for it. They didn't sign a 3-year contract. They didn't commit to a platform change. You gave them a tool. You let them try it. They can see if it's working, and if they're not seeing an ROI 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, they just won't use it. And I think this is a big part of why customers are actually pulling consumption-based models through, because they don't have to write huge business cases. They can just play with it. Now, they do need to learn. They need some help with that. You can't just dump the tool on them and run away. But they do learn, and they can move forward on their own. And the consumption model enables this to move forward without a 9-month sales process, a huge business case, a proven ROI in something. They can just test.
But I mean, on the flip side of that, if they're concerned and they're price sensitive, then do they want to lean into that consumption, turn on the solution, and then say, okay, well, how much is it going to cost, next month? I think is the challenge.
Absolutely, they want to understand. They want to understand the budget. They want to understand what the controls are. They need to map it. So if you give them the tools, but we know how that works. Everyone in this audience is probably using AWS for something. You can map your consumption spend exactly to the services, the servers, the data that's being stored. Give your customers the same tools. They can map their spend to the use case they deployed, and they can do their math about whether it's working and whether it's the thing they want to keep running or not.
Interesting. So, but Catherine, I don't know how you yourself build these things, but in terms of, I know a lot of voice AI startups do tend to go with, a monthly fee per service, per outcome. So, I mean, how are you approaching that?
That's exactly how we're approaching it. For our business, we're signing people up for a minimum, contracts, for a year. There's a month free trial, essentially, and then there is a minimum, and then it is consumption-based. So I think we're trying to hit on all of the things. I think businesses want to be able to model, in the budget, for the budget, but I also think, what we sell is so beautifully simple. Our product lines are, a receptionist agent, a texting agent, an after-hours agent, a website agent. So simply by buying what we have and implementing them, they can see where they are either generating more leads or, converting those leads into more calls, whatever it is. So the simplicity is key in the SMB.
And I think, Edward, just to bring you in again, I mean, simplicity is a message, but I know, Solgari, you do a lot of integration work, you do a lot of data-led work. How is that being received in the SME market in terms of, are you having to come up with a simple message, or are they buying complexity as well?
No, they're definitely not buying complexity, Finbar. That's for sure. Yeah. So SMB is on the march, and they're extending their existing investments, Finbar, right? So they're invested in hyperscaler platforms. Again, Sam hit on that in his very good talk earlier on. So, and within those investments, they're able to extend very rapidly into, again, customer engagement. So it's not about contact center either, Finbar, for SMB. What's a contact center in an SMB? Every person is selling or doing customer service, right? So in your own analysis, I think in your own analysis, you got 60% plus of phone systems are being connected into Microsoft Teams. So in Teams, we got SMB now using M365 Copilot. I was talking to Chris earlier on, he was telling me about what he's doing around Copilot. So they're using M365 Copilot to stand up customer engagement apps, let's say customer service intelligence or sales intelligence, and they're able to do that today on the conversations that are available within Teams in terms of what they have. They're able to extend it, and they're certainly getting value, and they're looking for more value on the back of that. So these are companies, so the SMBs are not bound by governance or politics or a big complicated data layer. They can get to this very, very rapidly. So that's happening that's happening today, and that's where growth's going to come from in the SMB market.
And is there a place where a lot of people start that journey? Like, is there a feature that they're leaning into first, or does it really depend on vertical or customer?
Well, if you're sitting in, for example, if I just choose Microsoft 365, it's looking at you right in the face. They're putting Microsoft M365 Copilot everywhere. The model it's a subscription-based model, so the consumption is built into the subscription, and SMBs are experimenting with this everywhere. And again, what they need, by the way, to make it work is conversations, right? Conversations is the key data they need to make it work. And this is happening right now. So probably a lot faster than enterprise because they're not facing all the issues the enterprise face that I mentioned. Governance, politics, a mess of data everywhere. They've got a much smaller data layer. They can move much more rapidly. So going back to your point at the start, simple is where to go here. If SMBs can simply extend their investments to full customer engagement, conversation capture, this is going to start moving very rapidly.
So I'm getting the message then that we need to simplify everything, simplify marketing, what we're selling to them, simplify the cost structure. Are there any areas of complexity that the SMB are entering into at all that anyone wants to draw attention to, or do we feel like it's just going to stay at that low level? I mean, maybe they want more data insights or anything driven from that perspective. Is that something they're asking for?
I'll take it. I think they do want complexity, but on the back end so that they can't actually see. So there's integrations are really important, but not in the UX. So we had Sam from 8x8 talking about deeply vertical. I think you need to, if you are selling into the SMB, you want to integrate with the solutions that they have. But there are only generally a handful. We're talking about email, we're talking about phone, maybe a CRM. If it's a dentist, it's Dentrix, Clio for legal, Jobber for the trades. So there's only a handful. And so if you can create a system that will integrate with that cleanly so that their experience is, simple and it does exactly what you said, I think that's where they want to see it.
In a lot of ways, I think they're creating some of their own complexity. I think Sam also talked about the large numbers of small vendors that are coming out doing very micro-verticalized things. And I think somebody this morning even mentioned that you find a lot of point solutions, especially at this end of the market. So they go and they solve this little problem with that vendor that came in with a specialized thing, and they solve that little problem with that vendor that came in, and then they suddenly find that they created their own complexity. So I believe there is an opportunity to then show up and find a way to pull that together. They don't know what the conversation data will give them yet. They hear about it. They have no clue. That's an enlightenment moment when they finally see that they've got all those conversations in one place and the amazing rich information. I think there was another speaker this morning that mentioned if you had all the data in your CRM over here or all the conversations together over here, which would you pick? I would absolutely pick the conversation data. They don't know it yet, but they've made these little decisions that have, complexified, if that's a word. I'll be the second one to invent a word today. Complexified their environment. You can bring that together, they will see something remarkable.
We're seeing that in our customer base and requests from service providers. If I go back 10, 15 years ago when I was selling to SMB, everything was disparate, and I think Zapier or whatever had just come into existence, and they almost took a little bit of weird pleasure. Oh, I can PayPal into HubSpot, into Sugar, whatever it was. There was always somebody that would have a go, but that's only because they didn't know there was this alternative future, which is where we've arrived at now. If you saw our stand today, we're connecting each of these value-added services behind the scenes, complex for us, easy for them, and thumbs up all round for that kind of world. Sorry if you're Zapier.
But I think a place where people may be interested is in how this buying journey starts and then builds up, because I think that's an area where a lot of people are wondering, how do I get in the front door of this? And, is that with going in with an AI solution, saying let's just automate this one piece? As you say, you risk creating complexity for them by doing that. Is it starting with UC or something like that and just building solutions on top of it? I mean, what do we think is the best way in at the front door if you're trying to sell this as a channel partner?
Channel partner-wise, I think I can speak to. So our most successful ones are not talking about AI, despite the obvious potential that you want to. You've got to hide it just for a minute. They always lead with the problem that's trying to be solved. AI is not the headline. Inevitably, it's the solution, but it's not the headline. So, okay, SMB, you are very aware of your pain, probably more than enterprise, because pain is spread out over a bigger number of people. What are the big three? There'll be a Pareto in there. What's the 20% of pain that will give you 80% of benefit? And ta-da, here's some AI solutions for you.
And how are the rest of you approaching that then? Are you, you're obviously leading with a voice agent of some description.
So, I hate to use it's the drinking word of the day, outcomes. But again, like I said, we have products that are named after the job that they do. So if you can articulate the value in those, I think that's a really good starting point.
Look, there's a lot of ways into an SMB. Each one of us probably has a core that we come from. 8x8 has a long history as a telephony and voice provider. A lot of our customers originate by trying to solve complex voice problems, even in an SMB where they might have multiple sites. The question is, once you get there, can you understand their business enough to figure out where their pain points are and offer them an easy path to go solve those? I don't think there's just one entry point. We've all kind of found our own way to get there, and then what do you do with that opportunity? Get to know your customer and solve their problems. Mind the gap. If you solve it, you'll stay. Especially now, because no feature is a problem anymore. Like the cost of developing a new feature or a new piece of software has shrunk to zero. So get the customer, make them happy, you'll stay there for life.
It's a pretty bold proposition to say. I mean, does anyone want to challenge that? Do anyone think that their features are, a standout?
I think it's a data and intelligence story. I think it's all going down that road. I think the SMB is not waking up in the morning thinking about what's the latest omni-channel contact center features that I can get today. I think, and look, of course, SMBs, we all know SMBs, but I think that they're in a position where they can be very, very successful compared to much larger peers, because of the way they're set up, because of what I said earlier on, and I just think it's in their face. And you're gonna find anyone can use M365 Copilot to create an agent. It's very easy to do it. They're gonna start using it, and they're gonna see lots of really interesting things that didn't know were possible. Will drive on further curiosity and demand for full-blown customer engagement capability. I think that's where it's going.
So kind of get it into their hands as quickly as possible so they can experiment with it, and then also start building their database as well.
Yeah, and it's just Finbar. It's building on what they have today. Don't go in and sell them something new, a new platform. That world is over. It's within where they are today, unless they're sitting on a very niche world, right? But increasingly, SMB is sitting inside hyperscaler solutions and it's being effective inside that, and extending what they need today, and again going back to data intelligence and conversational capture.
I want to talk about data intelligence a bit, because that's an area I'm really interested in, especially in this size of the market, because we're talking about companies that may or may not generate huge amounts of data outside their own business, but they obviously have lots of other companies who are doing similar things to them. So, I mean, is there a role here you're working with other companies to help these companies with insights that are outside of their own ecosystem? I wonder.
Well, it's certainly, first of all, I want to challenge you a little on your first statement.
Yeah.
The scale of their business is smaller, but their data is still very valuable to them.
Yeah.
At the scale they're operating, the ability to really understand what their customers are talking to their employees about matters tremendously still. So I really wouldn't discount that one at all. But yes, if you take a very hyper-verticalized approach to the market, you can absolutely learn in a small segment about approaches that are very valuable and meaningful to them. And I've actually been surprised that we've had customers that I would have thought of as potentially competitors, but they actually want to talk to each other. You get them together, you end up having a few customers in a hyper-vertical, and they're asking you when they can have a user group with their competitors. So that's how the IT department performs. Maybe the CEOs wouldn't agree, but the IT departments want to get together and share stories. And the data that you can generate and the knowledge and learnings absolutely are valuable across that segment, but not across the entire world. It really is a very hyper-verticalized approach.
But Andrew, what if you're sitting in a situation, where you service a lot of different channel partners who obviously are selling into these verticals? Do you think there's opportunities for you to help those SMEs with more data from across the stack outside their own?
Oh yeah, and actually we've spent a lot of time in recent months verticalizing the way that we even talk to partners so that they can downstream verticalize. So this is a thing that we're pretty focused on. We look at the top 3 verticals for any of our partners. Many are similar. And then we're serving up collateral, ROI, anything we can find for them to enable them to sell into those verticals or even sub-verticals. At the benchmark data level, I'm not entirely sure we're allowed to share, even anonymized, but I'll take that back to our roadmap committee, see if we can monetize it. Yeah. It's funny, every single company I've ever worked for in the last 15 years, and it was like customer success software and then sales enablement software, all evolved into now let's benchmark this at the vertical level and charge a fortune for it. So it clearly is a valuable thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just know conversations that were had in the last few years about trying to get car dealerships in America to share fraud data so that they could figure out who was calling them. I do want to talk about that maybe for a minute on the fraud side of things. We talked a bit about data. But obviously there's this large risk with the advent of AI that there's going to be more automated calling, more spam calling, more voice agent, deepfake, those kind of things. And there's been talk about it already. But I think from the SME perspective, where they maybe don't have the capabilities to deal with those as readily, how should they be thinking about these security threats that are growing? Andrew, is that maybe something you want to chime in on?
Certainly not my expert subject at all.
That's all
and
right.
nothing that the service providers are asking us for help necessarily
Okay.
But I can tell you I spoke to Edward about a very similar subject earlier on. So if we're allowed to do hospital passes.
Well, yeah, okay, thank you for that segue. Edward, why don't you... Yeah.
Look, no problem. Yeah, I'll take it on. So, look, if they are building their business on mainstream hyperscaler solutions, like they're sitting inside a huge trust boundary. If they're in Zoom or Google or Microsoft, I meant the hyperscalers actually. So they're sitting inside a huge trust boundary, and that's what they're buying in terms of Teams licenses and M365. So E7's coming next. So yeah, there will be issues. We all know that, right? And SMB in terms of governance, non-existent to very light. So that'll create problems. But overall, whatever problems they'll have, Finbar, I think will be totally outweighed by the huge benefits they're going to get and the opportunity actually to drive massive revenues versus their larger peers that are going way too slowly. So I think these things will unfold very rapidly. Yeah, they'll run into problems, but the world's going to move very rapidly. I think these guys, SMB type businesses that are tuned in, will produce some very interesting results revenue-wise by being able to use AI in their conversational data effectively.
I think it would be a good time to just chuck up our little Slido question if people would like to take a stab at answering that. I've gone backwards. Okay, right. Wrapping up on those technical issues, I guess, for the end of the day.
What would
we
it
are
have
an
been?
SMB, I guess.
What would it have been?
What would it have been? Let's see.
We'll go real time.
What is the biggest factor in SMB CX buying decision? Is it price, ease of deployment, integration, or is it going to be advanced capabilities?
Oh, I'll take a stab. I'm going to
Yep.
go with ease of deployment as number one. And then I would say integrations is number two, which does speak to that ease of deployment piece as well. You know, like I said earlier, making it simple with depending on the vertical that you're in and making that experience seamless. And then I would say price after that.
I would definitely concur with the ease of deployment, but again, I would add to that is the low risk of deployment, the consumption model that you're not buying into a 3-year plan up front before you know how it's going to go, combined with not having some big, heavy services contract in order to get it deployed. So you put the low-risk deployment in there, and that's absolutely number one on the list.
Yeah, and just to follow up with that, I think being able to demonstrate the investment, the ROI, you know, again, buzzwords, but being able to demonstrate that within a month of deployment. You know, if you have an agent that you can set up in an afternoon and then it's at work over the weekend and then you log into your dashboard and you can see, oh, you have 47 new calls this weekend and 3 appointments booked, suddenly you're not going to be as concerned on price. You're going to be, wow, look at that. This is amazing. Sell us more.
There's been an evolution that I've seen in SMB over the years that is now reaching this point where I'm quite convinced, tell me if this isn't true, guys, that they're buying more easily, quicker. That's all happening. They make decisions more speedily. I don't know exactly why, but they will do a smaller initial launch. So it'll be like 5 people when they've got 500 or whatever. So then the burden is on us to prove that value really, really quickly. So we need to specialize in how to do perfect pilots or whatever we decide to call it. They're saying yes quickly, but small. So it's smaller, quicker, and I want to work out how to speed that up.
But that's really fascinating because that ties directly into the AI message about consumption, which is maybe if you get them on board with a small account and then you can grow because they can experiment with the technology. Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that, Edward, just in terms of getting people on board and then ramping them up more?
Absolutely. So, just like any company, there's a starting point, a horizon one, call it, Finbar, where yes, they want to address a customer engagement requirement, right? So they want to improve their employee experience, their customer experience, and then they're going to expand. They're going to do more. They're going to, as Catherine said, they're going to start using AI agents to automate some of their processes. And they're going to end up very rapidly for SMBs because of their more simpler starting position. They're going to very rapidly end up with all their conversations in the same place, and then they're in business. Because off they can go with any AI tool they want and start, producing some really interesting operational intelligence, sales, customer service, anyone involved in customer engagement, as Sam was talking about earlier on. You have all these insights that wouldn't have previously, where their larger peers won't have that anytime soon. So that's an interesting scenario for them to be pitching into. I can see lots of revenue opportunity for SMBs around that.
I really like that picture of the SMBs being able to actually get a hold of their data management a lot faster because they don't have that huge legacy burden. I just see that we're coming up on time, so I guess any final takeaways from the panel in terms of what the SME should be thinking about in terms of CX, final considerations?
I just make a core point that the SME, the focus should be on turning customer conversations into usable business intelligence. That's the key.
And I completely agree with that one, and I would add, think about CX outside your contact center. Even if it's just 20 or 50 person contact center, that will get resolved. You'll figure out things to do there. Go deliver agent assist to your frontline employees somewhere else so that they understand the customer that's calling. Get the routing in front, the AI routing in front of the frontline workers. That's where you're going to grow your customer's business, and they're not going to argue about price at that point because you're going to show ROI quickly.
Absolutely.
My message wouldn't be to the SMB, but to the service providers serving the SMBs, which is just don't leave this until you've sorted out all that UCaaS stuff, embed it, get it all in the same holistic conversation, because it'll be a lot trickier to sell as an add-on later.
Brilliant. And final thoughts, Catherine?
Oh, I don't have any.
Oh, that's all right then. It's been a great panel. I think we've heard a lot about how, you know, SMBs need to embrace bits of this technology, start building their data, build up, start playing with AI, start learning about it. And obviously for the people in the room to enable them to do that, maybe thinking about being a bit more flexible with how they're giving them these products, letting them take on small deals, letting them experiment with it, don't tie them into big contracts, and then ramping them up. So I think it's been a really interesting panel. So thank you very much for joining me. And thank you to our panelists. Please, if you can all show us some appreciation to them.
Okay, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you, Finbar.